It's time. It's time. Time for the big giveaway.
This is just the same old stuff.
Remember to click like, subscribe, the bell notification, and whatever else YouTube has you clicking on to support us. Welcome, I'm the Kaiju no Kami, and tonight is Halloween! As such, let's move away from the Kaiju genre once again, and step into John Carpenter's original 1978 classic masterpiece, Halloween. Before I begin, let's take a look at the origins to this movie. John Carpenter was a film student in LA who made a movie together with a man named Dan O'Bannon called Dark Star. It was a science fiction comedy about astronauts, a blow-up ball-like alien, and an AI bomb. Afterwards, O'Bannon would go on to help create Alien with Ridley Scott, while John Carpenter moved on towards the horror genre and the supernatural with a colleague named Deborah Hill, but not before doing a little hostage takeover movie known as Assault on Precinct 13. The interesting thing about both of these movies was its atmosphere, mood, use of music, and cinematography. Carpenter then went on to do a little movie that was originally going to be called The Babysitter Murders, in which a killer stalks babysitters, but it evolved from that. Instead, it became known as Halloween and would go on to influence the horror genre for decades to come, especially in the 80s as every slasher movie wanted to be just like Halloween. If it weren't for Halloween, there would be no Friday the 13th, no Nightmare on Elm Street, and most of all, no Scream.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie. You can never have sex, never drink or do drugs. Never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
However, Carpenter's inspiration for Halloween came from two other little-known movies titled Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Psycho. In fact, the character of Sam Loomis from Halloween is named after Marion Crane's boyfriend in Psycho. Halloween would also go on to spawn numerous sequels despite Carpenter's disinterest in there being any. The third movie was planned to start the franchise as a yearly anthology film series, but when that bombed in theaters due to the lack of Michael Myers, Mustafa Akkad purchased all rights to the characters from Hill and Carpenter and brought Michael back numerous times. While the sequels varied in quality, none of them have ever topped the original. However, is Halloween a movie that truly holds up by today's standards, or did it just get lucky? Halloween begins in 1963 from a first-person viewpoint as a child Michael Myers. What you may not know is that this scene appears to be all in one take, but it is actually 3 takes. There is a scene change when Michael puts on the mask he picks up, and when he turns the corner leaving his sister's room after he brutally murders her. Our story jumps 15 years later to a storming night, and we meet Michael's doctor, Sam Loomis, played by the phenomenal Donald Pleasence, whom you may know from movies such as You Only Live Twice and Escape from New York. He is on his way to the hospital when he and a nurse named Marion find the inmates wandering about. Sam gets out of the car to open the front gate when Michael steals the car, driving off in the distance. Morning rises on Haddonfield, California, and we meet Laurie Strode, played by Scream Queen Jamie Lee Curtis, who also happens to be the daughter of Psycho star Janet Leigh. She is a high-spirited high school student who spends more time studying than dealing with boys. One of the kids she is babysitting that night, Tommy Doyle, comes up to her to talk about the bullies at school who tease him as she drops off some keys at the old Myers home for some people looking to buy the house. Don't houses normally have to be in top condition to be sold? Maybe I'm just wrong here because this is the 70s, but I sure wouldn't buy a house that looked like that. Unbeknownst to Laurie, Michael came home during the night and has now set his eyes upon Laurie and Tommy for stepping forth onto his property, following the duo wherever they may roam. Sam, frustrated with the lack of restraint placed on Michael, heads out to Haddonfield, for he knows Michael is going to murder someone there if he doesn't stop him.
Sam Haddonfield is 150 miles away from here. Now, for God's sakes, he can't drive a car. He was doing very well last night. Maybe someone around here gave him lessons.
Cracker Jack, the greatest snack ever made.
After school, Lori heads home with two of her friends, Linda and Annie. They are played by PJ Soles and Nancy Loomis. Oh, and in case you haven't noticed, if you have seen this movie before, Linda totally loves to say totally. In fact, I'm going to start a totally counter.
You know, it's totally insane. Totally wiped out.
I don't think you have enough to do tomorrow.
Totally. Totally never shows.
That's not true.
Totally charted.
Just
totally.
If you want, you can totally turn this into a drinking game. On their walk home, Lori notices a car with a man she saw earlier staring at her while she was in class drive by. Annie makes a smartass remark and he stops the car before driving off. Linda leaves the trio after they reach her house and Lori notices the strange man standing behind some bushes.
Annie, look.
Look where?
Behind the bush.
Annie rushes to the bushes to confront the guy, only to run into nothing but cigarette smoke. Actually, I'm not kidding. If you look closely, you can see a trail of smoke going across the screen. And this is because John Carpenter is a heavy smoker, and he was smoking way too close to the camera during this scene.
He wants to take you out tonight.
Anyway, there is nothing there. Annie goes inside to let Lori get startled from Annie's father, Sheriff Brackett, played by Charles Cyphers.
Excuse me,
Oh,
Lori.
Mr. Brackett, I'm sorry, Mr. Brackett.
Oh, I didn't mean to startle you. You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
That night, Annie picks Lori up because Annie is babysitting one of Tommy's neighbors from across the street, a girl named Lindsay. In the meantime, Sam is at the cemetery only to learn that Michael's sister's grave has been stolen, which immediately sets him off. He greets Brackett at a hardware store that was broken into, missing Michael by only one look away. Michael follows Annie and Lori to their destination, where it has suddenly gotten majorly dark in the span of 10 seconds. Seriously, it's perfectly bright out when they run into Annie's dad at the hardware store, just before Sam does, and then it is dark out in the next scene? I guess day and night work differently in Haddonfield, just like their out-of-state license plates. Loomis and Brackett go to the Myers house to investigate. They find the remains of a devoured dog. Brings new meaning to the term dog-eat-dog world, doesn't it? Tommy shows off his marvelous not DC comics to Lori.
Laser Man. Neutron Man, I can understand why. Tarantula Man.
She receives a call from Annie, who is bored since all Lindsay wants to do is watch horror movies on the TV. Interestingly enough, one of the movies on the TV is the original 1950s adaptation of The Thing. Foreshadowing. After spilling butter on her clothes and getting stuck in the laundry room, Annie gets a call from her boyfriend that his parents are away and she should come and pick him up. As such, she takes Lindsay to Tommy's house so Lori can watch her, only for her to be murdered.
All I give you all. No keys. Really all. My fault.
Hold on a minute. Let's look at this scene closely. She gets to the car, finds it locked, so she leaves to get the keys. And she comes back and just opens the door up without unlocking it. What is wrong with you, Annie?
Well, it would seem we're down to a duet.
Linda and her boyfriend Bob arrive at Lindsay's house to say hi to Annie.
Totally.
This is totally silly.
No one is there.
Hey, it's totally dark.
Yeah.
Hey, is Annie around?
No, I thought she'd be home by now. She went to pick up Paul.
Well, she's totally not here.
They soon learn that Lindsay is gone for the night, so the duo decide to go up to the parents' room to totally have some killer sex.
Holy.
Bob is the first to go after heading downstairs to get some beers. How did I do that? I really don't think this talent understands the law of physics either. Casper the 6-foot cheat opens the door to stare at Linda until she calls Lori and gets all choked up about what is happening. Totally done. Yay. I don't need this anymore. Lori calls the house back, which happens to have the loudest phone ringer ever. No one picks up, so Lori decides how to investigate what is going on for herself. She enters the darkly house searching for her friends.
I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
Michael emerges from the shadows to make her his next victim, but she gets away. How do you ask? By simply limping. Slowly across the street. Good thing Michael just knows that no one is going to help her out. Lori gets back to the Doyle house and stabs Michael in the face with a needle when he teleports in. She runs upstairs thinking all is safe until Michael follows her. She makes a break for what is the weakest closet ever, and yet Michael can't seem to get her. He just hangs around until she stabs him with a hanger. Michael gets up once again after Tommy and Lindsay have fled the premises screaming, and Sam rescues Lori by shooting Michael 6 times with his gun. Lori mumbles something.
What's the boogeyman?
Sam just responds with,
As a matter of fact, it was.
as if that is what she asked. He looks outside, but Michael has just disappeared into thin air. That's it. After getting shot 6 times, Michael just gets up and leaves and disappears. Where'd he go to? What kind of ending is that? I guess we'll just have to wait for the sequel. Except there wasn't a sequel planned. So that is just how the movie is supposed to end. What? At first, this may seem to be a major annoyance to people as it feels like it was sequel baiting when it really wasn't. Instead, this is just absolutely brilliant, as Sam constantly said Michael was not a human being, but an evil thing. In fact, throughout the entire movie, he is never really identified as Michael except when Sam is talking to Brackett about him. He is just a mysterious evil creature that is even called the Shape in the credits, meaning it was never Michael to begin with. This brings a new supernatural element to the mix, which would fit in line with Carpenter's other works that would come in the future, be it Ghost Pirates from the Fog to the Lovecraftian creatures of In the Mouth of Madness. It represents how little of a man Michael actually is, and as such, the ending fits quite well with Loomis's lament. It also helps that this movie is very unique in its execution. It may have spawned the modern day slasher genre, but compared to all of its sequels and copycats, it stands out among the crowd as the movie is hardly gory and is more than just being a movie about teenagers dying. No one really dies for a good 40 minutes. Instead, it builds up on suspense and tension as you know someone is going to die, but you are not sure when or how. Nor are you sure who is going to be first. It also helps that their deaths are done in a realistic manner. Okay, realistic for the most part, but still, this is also what drives up the scare factor. There isn't some ancient mystical power being used to kill these people, Michael isn't slicing heads off with an everyday butcher knife. He is relying on his own human strength to do the deed. The characters themselves are all quite interesting, as we have Lori, Linda, and Annie, all of whom talk and act like you would expect teenagers to do. Tommy and Lindsay speak and act like kids. Sheriff Brackett is good, but the star of the show is easily Loomis.
Lonnie, get your ass away from there.
Pleasance was just perfectly suited for the role, as if he was just playing himself as a psychiatrist rather than an actor, and he is the reason why even the weaker sequels in the franchise come out better than most. The only character who pretty much remains lackluster is Bob, and that is because he is really just there to die. Nevertheless, one worthless character compared to several good ones is a worthwhile trade-off compared to what other horror movies of the future did. Not to mention the acting on all the characters is really good, for most of them being new to this field, even from Tommy's actor. It is also amazing to see how a simplistic design for a monster, as it were, can be, and yet how memorable it is. All the production team did was paint a William Shatner mask and have him wear some janitorial clothes, yet Michael's design is vastly iconic. That aside, I feel like it is the execution that sets Michael apart from his proteges. A good portion of the movie is Michael just watching and observing everything that Lori does. He is there to destroy her world for stepping on his property, at least at the time, and gauges at her livelihood before striking. This is one of the areas that Halloween really stands out. Another area is in its music. The music fits every scene quite nicely and really adds to the suspenseful moments to provide one of the most chilling and haunting scores to any horror movie in existence. In fact, Psycho is the only other horror movie out there where the music is just as much a character as the physical ones. From that catchy theme that will never leave your head once you hear it, to the chasing sounds of tension that rise as Lori is being attacked by Michael.
Oh God! Help me, please!
All of it makes this movie outstanding. Most importantly, it is all done by John Carpenter himself. Unfortunately, the movie is not perfect by any means because of the limited budget and time that went into the movie. There are dozens of mistakes and continuity errors. Wrong license plates, sidewalks that are dry in one scene and wet in the next, the location of where a garage may be located, the neighborhood looking a little unfall-like, and so forth, all contribute to just a couple of a multitude of errors. Yet, unless you are really looking for them, you probably won't spot them because of how focused your attention is to what is happening to the characters and story. This is what truly makes a movie a masterpiece, as you are too engaged in the overall product that your mind ignores the little things. In the end, there is not too much more I can say about Halloween that I did not already cover. This movie is just near perfect and probably one of the best horror movies of all time. Not to mention, Michael Myers is just an iconic monster that follows the likes of the Wolfman, Frankenstein's monster, the Gill Man, the Mummy, Dracula. He is just fantastic, and John Carpenter was a pure genius with this movie. It is just a shame that nothing will ever recapture the glory of this one. Well, that brings an end to Halloween month. Until next time, bye.
Wanna play some hockey?